Okay, we will first look at adding fractions and mixed numbers with the same denominators. If I want to add 2 and 7/10 with 5 and 5/10, I need to first add the whole numbers. So 2 plus 5 is 7, and 7 plus 5 is 12. I have the same denominator of 10, so I don't need to do anything with the denominator. I just add the numerators. Now, as you can see, 12/10 is an improper fraction. So what I need to do is I need to change this number to a mixed number. 12/10 is the same as 1 and 2/10, because 10 goes into 12 once, and then I have 2/10 left over. And now my final answer is 7 plus 1, which is 8, and 2/10. I can still simplify this fraction. I leave the 8 where it is, but I see that both 2 and 10 can be divided by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 8 and 1/5 is my final answer. In the second example, I need to subtract 7 and 1/3 and 2 and 2/3. As you can see, you cannot take away 2/3 from 1/3. So what I can do is I can borrow 1 from the 7. The 7 will become a 6. And add 3 to the 1. I add the numerator and the denominator together. And I have 6 and 4/3. Now I can subtract 2 and 2/3 from it. So let's again, first I'll subtract the whole numbers. 6 minus 2, that gives me 4. And I have the same denominator of 3. So I now can subtract the numerators. 4 minus 2 is 2. And my final answer is in simplest form. So it's 4 and 2/3. Now, if we have two fractions that don't have the same denominator, we first have to find their least common denominator. And in order to do this, we need to find the least common multiple of the two denominators. So in the first example, I have 3 and I have 4. We could create a table, and I can think, okay, so 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 will be 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, let's look at 4 now. I see that 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12. As you can see, their least common multiple is 12. So I know that the least common denominator will be 12. Okay. First, I'm going to try and change 1/3 to a fraction with a denominator of 12. So in order to get from 3 to 12, I needed to multiply 3 by 4. So 3 times 4 is 12. Now I need to do the same thing to the numerator, so I'm going to have to do 1 times 4, and that's 4. So 1/3 is the same as 4/12. Now I'm going to try and change 3/4 to a fraction with a denominator of 12. So 4 times what is 12? Times 3. 3 times 3 gives me 9. So I can see that 3/4 is the same as 9/12. And now that I have those two fractions with the common denominator, which is 12, I can add their numerators. Now let's try to do the second one. What's the common denominator of 8 and 12? Again, if you're not sure, if you can't guess by just looking at them, you can always try to write the first few multiples of each number. So let's say 8 times 1 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 8 times 3 is 24. 12 times 1, 12, 12 times 2 is 24. There. I have 24 as their least common multiple. So I will now find I will now find equivalent fractions to 3/8 with a denominator of 24. 8 times 3 is 24, so 3 times 3 is 9. 3/8 is the same as 9/24. Now, 12 times 2 is 24, so 7 times 2 is 14. Now my fractions have the same denominator of 24. Now that we know how to find the least common denominator, let's practice with adding and subtracting. So I have 1/3 and 1/4. I already know that their least common denominator is 12. So first let me convert 1/3 to a denominator of 12. 3 times 4 is 12. So 1 times 4 is 4. 1/4. 1 times 3 is 12. 4 times 3 is 12. And 1 times 3 is 3. Now I have 3 12s plus 4 12s. And my answer is 7 12s. This is my final answer because this fraction is already in simplest form. Now let's do one example of subtraction. I have 4/5 and I have 3/10. I can see that 10 will be their least common denominator. That means I can change 4/5 to a fraction with a denominator of 10. So 5 times 2 is 10, 4 times 2 is 8. I don't have to do anything with 3/10 because that already has the right denominator. Now I have 8/10 minus 3/10 equals 5/10. This fraction is not simplified, so I'm going to divide both the numerator and the denominator by their greatest common factor, which is 5, and my answer is 1/2. Now we do the same if we have to add or subtract mixed numbers. So first I will copy the whole number and I'm going to set up changing the denominator. What's the least common denominator for 2 and 5? So 5 times 2 is 10. That goes into 2 as well, so my least common denominator will be 10. Now let's change 4 and 1/2. So 2 times 5 is 10, so 1 times 5 is 5. Now let's look at 3 and 3/5. 5 times 2 is 10, so 3 times 2 is 6. Now that my mixed numbers have the same denominator, I can add first the whole numbers. 4 plus 3 is 7. And now I'm going to add the numerators. 5 plus 6 is 11 over the common denominator of 10. Now I need to change the 11/10 into a mixed number because that's an improper fraction. So I have 7 plus 11/10 is the same as 1 and 1/10. So now I have 7 plus 1 is 8, and I have 1/10. 8 and 1/10. Now I have 4 and 1/4 minus 1 and 1/5. So let's look at this. 4 and 5 has the common denominator of 20. So let me first rewrite the first fraction. 4 times 5 is 20, so 1 times 5 is 5. Now I'm changing 1 and 1/5 to a fraction with the denominator of 20. 5 times 4 is 20, so 1 times 4 is 4. Now I can take away my whole numbers, so 4 minus 1 is 3. 5 minus 4 is 1 over the common denominator of 20. 1 and 1, 3 and 1/20 is my answer. Now let's do a couple of more examples that require borrowing. So first let's have a look at the denominators. I have 5 and 1/3 minus 2 and 1/2. Their least common denominator will be 6. So let's change 5 and 1/3 to a fraction with the denominator of 6. 3 times what is 6? 3 times 2. So 1 times 2 is 2. Then I take away 2 and let's change the fraction. So 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3. Now we end up with 5 and 2/6 minus 2 and 3/6. We cannot take away 3/6 from 2/6, so I need to borrow 1 from the 5. So let's rewrite it. I'm going to cross off the 5, and that will become a 4. So I will now have a 4. I will add 6 and 2 together and end up with 8/6. So as you can see, 4 and 8/6 is the same as 5 and 2/6, but it allows me to subtract 3/6. So I have 4 minus 2, which equals 2. 8 minus 3 equals 5 over the common denominator of 6. My answer is 2 and 5/6. Now let's do just one more in case you're still confused. So I have 7 and 1/4 minus 2 and 3/5. Their common denominator will be 20. So let's first rewrite the fractions. 7. Now 1/4 will be, what will it be? 4 times 5 is 20. So 1 times 5 is 5. Now let's do the same for the other number. I have 2 and 5 times 4 is 20. So 3 times 4 is 12. Now again, I can see that I cannot take 12 away from 5. That's why I'm going to borrow 1 from 7 and rewrite my fraction as 6 and 25/20ths. Then I can take away 2 and 12/20ths. I will take away my whole numbers. So 6 minus 2 is 4. 25 minus 12 is 13 over the common denominator of 20. This is in the simplest form, so I don't need to do anything else with it.